Over the course of the last few weeks, we've been discussing one of our very own and very few team members heading to Ukraine. Will Kilmore, one of our writing team, is currently embedded with the Global Surgical and Medical Support Group, or GSMSG. Now, Will's there documenting the efforts of GSMSG to train both regular and volunteer forces on tactical combat casualty care, or TCCC, as well as other medical and surgical support items that GSMSG has been there doing since Russia invaded. Now, TCCC is essentially the immediate action you take when you take a casualty. Will himself is a former U.S. Army infantryman and Purple Heart recipient, so he knows a thing or two about being both a soldier as well as tactical combat casualty care. TCCC is ingrained in Western forces from very early in our training, and it's somewhat continuously touched on throughout the entirety of our military careers. Now, Will is also embedded in other parts of the world with GSMSG, including Honduras and Africa, so he's bringing a wealth of comparative knowledge to the table here. Now, one of the observations that Will made was the disparity in both attitudes and equipment between the TDF, or Territorial Defense Forces, and the Ukrainian Regular Army.
Today we're kind of off in the middle of nowhere, training some TDF, I guess, Territorial Defense Forces, and they're getting some, like, TAC med training, I guess. Essentially tactical maneuvers and how and what happens when you take casualties.
The TDF is Ukraine's reserve and volunteer militia force, and a lot of you will be familiar with the Ukraine Foreign or International Legion. The Ukraine International Legion is actually a part of the TDF.
Okay, so after working a couple hours with my first batch of TDF, Territorial Defense Forces, basically civilians who volunteered to fight but are more, I guess, of a organized militia, not officially in the military. Like the differences between them and the actual soldiers I've been working with the past couple of days is pretty apparent. These TDF dudes, they have like the best kit, you know, they have the best helmets, the best plate carriers, they have the best like rifles, they have like, you know, Daniel Defense ARs and stuff like that, when the Ukrainian soldiers had basic, you know, issue helmets and rifles and stuff like that. But what I'm getting, though, is that obviously the Gucci kit does not the soldier make, because the soldiers, you know, they're squared away, they're where they need to be on time. They're motivated, even, you know, false motivation when you tell them to do something. These guys, about half showed up of who were supposed to be here. They showed up late, most of them, only like 2 or 3 were on time, and then they didn't have what they needed, so, you know, it's like, hey, go get your pen and paper, and they, you know, it's not the run and get it like a soldier would and come back, it's the, you know, while the, you know, the rest of the crew's getting smoked because they didn't have, you know, what they needed to have, and rather than, you know, hurrying up and going to get their stuff and come back, they have the pissy attitude. But they're not trained soldiers, basically, but they have a lot of potential.
Now, Will's comments here appear to be more specific to the Ukrainian volunteers that are a part of the TDF, though. What's interesting about this contrast is the difference in what we find in the West relative to our reserve and active components. While the attitudes between the reserve and active component forces match pretty well, almost too well, what's interesting is the personally owned and donated equipment that the TDF has the opportunity to field. Much of what the TDF has on hand is personally purchased, while the Ukraine Regular Army are really just stuck with what Ukraine has to offer. Something profound from Will, though, is the notion that your kit isn't necessarily what makes the soldier. The headspace is. Now, in the words of Maverick, it's the pilot in the box, not the plane.
What it sounds like is, out of this group of TDF, they're continuously training with GSMSG, and it sounds like even a few of them are off at a different course, I'm not sure where. But eventually, or here in the next week or so, they're going to pull the top 6 guys or so from this unit and put them actually in the actual military, is kind of what it sounds like, is the military's drawing on these TDF groups for bodies, essentially. So yeah, that was just kind of checking in to just give my first impressions of the TDF now that I've worked with them. So they got a long way to go, but they have potential, is the conclusion. So
Now make sure you guys have the app downloaded and you're checking in on the website each day where we're posting Will's updates raw before they make it here to YouTube. But it's important for you to understand and note that we are posting these on a nondescript delay to protect both Will and GSMSG as individuals, but also their mission. That's it for this episode. Hit the like, sub, bell, and stay informed.